Hello and welcome back to Mockup Monday. This is episode 3. I needed to take some time over the past few weeks away for, a mixture of general like summer holiday stuff and work. Uh, some stuff has been picking up, pretty exciting. Hopefully I can announce some of that pretty soon. But yeah, we're back. I'm going to try to lock back into this and get a bit consistent once again. It's been a bit tricky over the past week. But yeah. So once again, this is Mockup Monday, my series where I'm going through and transcribing and recreating a piece of music here in Logic Pro. The recreation isn't meant to be one-to-one exactly. It's more so an exercise in listening and transcribing and picking apart a piece of music to see, why it works how it does, and to try and take some insights from the music and incorporate it into my own work. So, because this is more focused on how a piece works instead of just around recreating it, I only do around a minute ish, or I tried to only do a minute ish. Last Mockup Monday episode was a bit too long. Uh, but, anyways, this is meant for a more focused look into the piece of music. So, I choose roughly a minute of the track that interests me and that I'd really like to, see how it's working and figure out how I can, maybe do some of the same things myself. So here is a minute from the track From Past to Present. Let's give it a listen. All right, so that's the bit we're going to be transcribing and mocking up. You might notice a little difference from last video. I've redone my template, actually. I just felt like I wanted to change, so I kind of completely redid it, which took a little bit, and I'm still kind of workshopping it a bit, but I like where it's at. Okay, as usual, we're going to start with some sketch tracks to do a little piano reduction. This is going to be tricky, I think, because a lot of it, especially towards the end, in this sort of area, it's super dense. Like, it's very densely orchestrated. The notes themselves, like the main notes, you can hear obviously like the bass, melody, and maybe some little counterlines poking in and out. You can hear pretty clearly, but it gets a bit tricky when trying to discern which parts or which sections are playing the exact notes because of how dense and sort of layered it is. Another interesting thing about Skyrim music specifically is that most of the actual music is samples. So, apart from I know for a fact the vocals in the main theme are recorded live, and there's probably soloists throughout the score that are recorded, but the rest is just sample libraries. So this might also be a bit of a challenge to see if I can, very quickly with my modern techniques and libraries, if I can get an even more realistic result than Jeremy Soule. That remains to be seen. I'm not going to say whether I think it's likely or not. I'm just going to do it and we'll see what happens. Let's get going. Okay, so this is kind of odd. I was just trying to play in some of the melody on piano, and I was noticing that it sounded like very out of tune. And it seems that for some reason, Jeremy Soule pitched up all the music, or at least this track from Skyrim. So it's pitched up about like 7-ish cents. I'm not exactly sure. It still sounds a little bit wobbly, even with me pitch shifting the track down. But here, let me show without the pitch shifting, and I'll try to play the melody. It's not going to sound great, but here. See, it's not nice. But now with it pitched down a little bit, it still wobbles a little bit, but it's more in tune, I think. So, yeah, hopefully you can hear that. That's kind of strange. I wonder why he chose to do that. Because it's just like 7 cents. It's not loads, but it's just a little bit sharp. Okay, whatever. Anyways, let's get back to it and actually get some stuff down. Okay. So that's the melody for the intro. It's very slow tempo. I think we do something like that. There's a little clash. Let me just sustain that. Can we hold the C there? I think we do. I think I hear C. See what I mean when I say it's very layered and dense? It's hard to tell exactly what's happening. I might need to just go with my gut and see, or just choose something. I definitely hear an A there. I think there is that little clash there. Okay, now let's just listen to this first bit. Let's get the bass down for the next bit. that in cello. Then I'm hearing something like a viola line. While this holds, I think maybe violas are doing some sort of something climbing here. Then I'm hearing Is that what the violas are doing? That's really cool if that's what they're doing. I'm wondering if this is starting out in cellos, obviously, and then when the cellos and they rest here, when they hold this note and then this one, it sounds like this line is dovetailing into the violas. So I wouldn't be surprised if violas and cellos are both playing, and then the cellos go da da da, while the violas go da 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 da, and they just sort of like da da, and then do something, or just to like maybe they hold on that note and re-articulate it to try and give a bit of movement to the moment. It's so hard to tell what's going on. I'm wondering if this first bar is just everyone playing the sort of descending melody line, and then they break off into this counter line once the melody sits. I think that could be it. So it's like, but the octave down. Very tricky. Tricky to properly know. And I'm also thinking about how, when I go to mock this up and like orchestrate it, how I'm gonna do this to sound both so full, but also be having, you know, these different lines. Because if you have multiple different lines, or if you have many different lines going on at the same time like this, you're probably not gonna have things feel so like constant, straight. Like it feels like block chords going on, like they're just string pads, but also with these moving lines. So I'm wondering if he just took advantage of the fact that it was all samples and just like did whatever. So like he had these lines going, but he also had like string pads holding the block chords, or like synth pads layered in there as well. There probably is some synths as well to pad things out. It might be synths instead of brass that I'm hearing, but it's really hard to know. Okay, let's start getting things pulled around. What do we have in the opening? That sounds like oboe and violas on the melody. So let's get an oboe. UCSW. Just making sure that I don't have the audio disappear like I did last episode and lose an hour of footage. That was fun. Just make sure these retongued notes are retongued and not going to be like canceling each other. Have a break there. I can do that. And then let's get the sustain pedal up for the retongued notes. Just leave you there. I'm doing the sustain. I don't know if I've ever said before, but I'm doing the automating the sustain pedal to trigger retonguing within the library. Because both CSS, I think the whole Cinematic Studio series will, and also most libraries actually, will have a retongue or rebow for strings usually, and that'll be triggered with the sustain pedal. It's changing a little bit recently to have that be like automatic, depending on if you play the same note again within a certain time frame, it'll just automatically rebow. But for most libraries that have the functionality, it's usually like this. But whatever library you have, it'll be, it'll have the information somewhere in like a manual that you can check out. So now let's listen to this again. See? So it's retonguing the note. So now I'm going to play in the modulation data. Like that. Like that. Okay, I'm back after a little bit of a lunch break. I had some issues with recording earlier. I didn't lose much footage like last time. It was just some weird stuff with my computer overheating, I think. I probably need to pull back this template a little bit, which is annoying, but oh well. I have a lot more going on in terms of reverb and different buses, so there's probably a fair bit of extra performance that I could gain from just scaling that back a bit. But hey, learning experience. Anyways, I have gotten a little bit more of the strings done. This is really tricky. I'm gonna need to spend more time getting things sounding super clean. I think it's also cool to see, or not maybe cool, but valuable to show how rough it sounds before I've done like any other mixing. But then at the end of it, when I finish the mock-up and then I go to mix it and then show off the final version, it usually sounds quite a bit better. The next thing I need to do is choirs, but first let me just play the strings and oboe, and then also I think I just need to get some ensemble patches for strings and just like have block chords to help fill the texture out. Here's where we're at after a couple hours. So, not great. Not great sounding yet. I need to put in the solo cello actually to keep doing the full melody here instead of breaking off into this divisi line. This is Performance Samples Vista 2 solo cello. I want to move it more to the right. Now what I want to focus on for a moment here is the volume of the counter lines in relation to everything else, because that is really important to how this is working and keeping things from feeling too overpacked. The violas are too loud there. Oh, they're too quiet. I think it makes more sense for the violas to just finish the melody, just leave that to the celli. And I can have the violas do just the melody for that. Because then it'll, like, it leads into the line anyways, right? Like that. Just like that. Might layer in more strings. I don't like how CSS is sounding right now on its own. I could do Pacific. Pacific might be nice for this. I think I'll do that. I'll layer Pacific in everywhere. I think with the violas especially it'll help a lot, because the CSS violas aren't sounding. I think we're just getting too high with the mod data here. Like, the track gets louder, but I don't think Jeremy Soule was necessarily cranking the mod wheel so that the samples like hit a higher dynamic layer. I think it was just actual like gain and filling out the arrangement, so it sounds louder, but they're not, like, it still sounds quite delicate even when it gets louder, or maybe not completely delicate, but a little bit. It's more restrained than. Part of what might be helping that feel a lot more full actually is the way his reverb is set up, because it is very wet. A lot of verb, whereas my template is a little bit more, not restrained, but it's a bit tighter sounding. Whereas this is very like lush and wide and spacey. I think changing how I have my reverb set up could help a bit. Because what I was doing here was within Air Reverb was using the stretch mode and sort of tightening the tail. Because by default it's very lush and wide, which I don't want for most of my work, but in this case, I think it'll help quite a bit with things feeling more lush. I'm also going to tweak my strings bus settings to be less bright. This is Goldfoss. I have it on my string bus just a little bit. Goldfoss Live, so it uses less CPU. And I'm just going to have it not affect anything above 10K. I also have this new sort of doubler. It's kind of like a chorus technique in my template. So it's using a little bit of detuning and delay to make things feel warmer and a bit more lush. Like it's called doubler, so it essentially will double the size of my string section through almost a chorus-like effect. But I'm using just a little bit, so if you use a touch of it, it's actually quite subtle and very nice. Let me get that back up. Then I can just bypass it. That's even a bit too much. But you can hear how it goes from, at least like in terms of the stereo field, you can hear how it goes from where things are like sounding correct, with things sounding like where they should be, to sort of just being like spread out and a bit more dispersed. This is way too much. But if I pull it out and then dial it in a little bit. Just going too high. Now, the violins too are playing a little bit too hard, and that's because I had, before using just CSS, it needed that to get to the right sort of volume. But now that I am layering it with Pacific as well, I don't need it to be pushing as hard. So I can sort of pull that back a bit, because obviously now instead of one like violin 2 string section, I have effectively 2 violin 2 string sections. So I don't really necessarily want to have that doubling, because it would just be that much louder. Choir is doing a lot of heavy lifting for filling things out. This is my main workhorse for like legato type choir stuff. Eternity from Audio Bro. Have you ramp in like so. Then I'll just play in the mod data. I have a feeling that there's just like an extra choir pad or two, just layered there, holding the chord tones higher up. I think that works, and that is just like an extra, essentially, pad of vocals. Okay, I think I'm almost finished. Uh, all I've really added is some horns, some low brass. I'm probably also gonna add trombones. Let me do that now, actually. These, but I'll have them playing like that. Make sure the... What else do I want to put in? Let me listen to the original again. Just from doing that and going from the reference to mine, I can immediately hear that the reference has a lot more stuff going on in like the low mids and that sort of range. So while the brass is helping to fill that range out, I think I'm going to layer in some synth pads. I immediately think to Eldenvale, Fracture Sounds Compendium Eldenvale, which has these fantasy pads. I think these are honestly probably going to get us the last little bit there. Let's give these a listen. Like immediately, I think just layering that in could help things feel a lot less bare. So I'm just going to get the chords, pop them in that. I'm probably also going to put some sort of a low bass synth to double the basses just for more weight and stability in that range. And that should be us almost done, or basically done at that point. Okay, I think that should be pretty nice. Okay. I think that's pretty much there. So I am probably gonna do a bit of last little tweaks maybe. There's not really anything that I can hear now, but I'm gonna listen back a couple times, check through headphones, make sure things sound sort of how they should be, do a bit of mixing, and then I'll be back and talk about some takeaways. Yeah, I'll see you soon. Okay, so welcome back. I just finished the last little tweaks and doing some mixing. One of the only things I properly added was a solo vocalist to basically double the melody for the main crescendo bit. Apart from that, I didn't add anything, I don't think. It was just tweaking some of the CC data, adding some, extra expression automation to the strings so things are a bit more extreme, I guess, when it comes to the last decrescendo and some of the volume throughout. And yeah. So this was really tricky. Partly because, like I've said multiple times, it's very layered, it's very dense, and weirdly enough, it not being recorded live and orchestrated as if it was going to be recorded live kind of made me second guess myself a little bit. Like knowing that this was made with samples means that people can do things that are more hyper realistic instead of just realistic. But I think that wasn't necessarily exactly what Jeremy Soule did. I think I was getting tripped up by the possibility of that, and that compounded with it being very dense and very hard to hear things just as it is, made me second guess some of these inner lines. Like I'm pretty sure now, after doing my mock-up, that this is how it is laid out with the counterlines, right? I'm pretty sure it's the melody doing its thing, and then when the melody rests, the counterlines come in, starting with the cellos, and then when the celli rest on this note here, the violas take over, doing their own little extra movement. And the way it was mixed with how layered everything is, it makes it hard to hear exactly what's going on. I'm pretty happy with the result in the end. Again, the disclaimer, it's not one-to-one. I could definitely spend days tweaking every little thing to get it sound even more one-to-one. So something that I'm learning from this is going to be, I guess, layering, like using more stuff or if I am in the situation that calls for it. Obviously, I can't speak for what Jeremy was thinking when writing this, but it's very clear that he wanted something dense. And to do that, I'm, again, 95% sure that he added synths as well, playing the harmony, and then brass in a very low dynamic, just again adding more warmth. And then also, again, on top of that, using vocals or choir and vocals in this case, to add more harmonic backing. And then even on top of all that, even while all these things are, building up a really, really lush and dense texture, even on top of that, he's still adding counterlines in the celli and violas. And even within the counterlines, the celli and violas are interacting with each other. The violas are picking up where the celli leave off, whereas the entire counter melody picks up where the melody leaves off. So it's just this like huge interconnected web of things weaving in and out, all the while everything is still like very present. It's tricky. It was very tricky to break down, but I think it's super super cool, and I think it really speaks to his skill with not just writing but also with arranging. It's just masterful. It is just absolutely masterful. And then on top of that, the fact that it was all done with samples and samples back then as well is insane. I think this was good fun and a good learning experience.